invisible partner walking with us. We are in partnership with God. Ernest Holmes says, we must awaken to the realization that a divine partnership has already been formed between the seen and the witness. We should feel daily seen within us. Today, let's recognize that we have a partner, a mentor, and a collaborator in God. How wonderful to know that it is God's pleasure to see our lives brimming with vibrant good health, with comfort, and with happiness and peace.
This song, I teach a songwriting class, and some of the kids in the class,
we don't have a...
I say kids, because they're kids to me, but they're from 14 to 33, kids. Anyway, so some of the kids in the class have this, well, probably all of us in the room, have this voice in their head that keeps them from really finishing the song. They'll start, and then, this isn't good, and blah. So I started giving them this 15-minute exercise, where they had to write the song in 15 minutes, and they had to have something. And so I set the timer, and everybody went off, and I thought, well, I should go off and do it too, just to show them it can be done. And so I wrote this song about a water bottle.
Moved everything.
But everyone thinks it's about all these different things. And I thought that the answer, like at the end, it sounds kind of depressing because it says you're vitally important, but for some, so hard to get. Because I pictured those women in Africa who are carrying those big containers, spaces, whatever, I want to call them something else. But anyway, those big containers. And for hours, they're walking and walking just to get water for their family. But then you think of other things. The kids thought it was about love or about God or, different things that the song was about. And, we have something that other people don't have sometimes. We don't have everything, but we do have things that are hard to get for other people. So this is about that.
You flow through me, you quench my thirst, you clean me up when I'm at my worst. I swim in you, you ease my pain, you're the biggest part of me that I can't explain. And there is nothing like you on this planet and beyond. You're the one I come to. Every day you are the bond that connects to those I know and to those I never met. And you're vitally important, but for some, so hard to get. So hard to get. I can't live without you, but I don't give you all you do. I take you for granted like worn-in shoes. I'm quickly losing step, I need to turn around. Focus on you before I run aground. 'Cause there is nothing like you on this planet and beyond. You're the one I run to. Every day you are the bond that connects to those I know and those I never met. And you're vitally important, but for some, so hard to get. so hard to get. You don't complain, you just keep giving. Take me back to the beginning. You don't complain, you just keep giving. I hear the train calling, there is nothing like you on this planet. You're the one I run to on this planet. You connect me on this planet, and you're vitally important for song. You're vitally important for song. You're vitally important for song. So hard to get. On this planet, so hard to get. On this planet, so hard to get. On this planet.
I have to say, I've never really cried about a water bottle before. But that was very moving, and I want to change my welcome to welcome back. As soon as you started to sing, I realized you have been here before, and it's a delight to have you. So thank you very much, Jimmy. It's wonderful. One more time. So this morning, we light our candle for spirit. The foundation of all relationships that we have in our lives. That is what we're talking about this month, is relationship. And we've spoken about our knowing of ourselves, of our connecting with other people, of our role and relationship in society, the relationship we have with our physical being. And this week we talk about our relationship with spirit, the nature of life, the divinity of things that we often lose sight of when we're in the midst of our day-to-day, very human activity. Ernest Holmes, in a little book with questions and answers of science of mind, acknowledged the shift it takes to change the way we look at life, to change the way we understand God. Because we talk about God in a different way, we thought, than a lot of traditional teachers do. So this is what he wrote. When we first transcend the old idea of God, we may lose something, because it was a God to whom we could go as we would to a human friend, a God we felt we could hear and answer as a person would. When we think exclusively of a universe of law, we no longer have that human-like God to pray to and may be thrown into a spiritual abyss. But we can pass through this state into the realization that we could not be conscious beings unless there were a first consciousness of the universe. We could not have become personified unless there were an infinite personalness. So we begin to see that there is an infinite personalness in the universe, an infinite presence, not an infinite person, an infinite presence, the universal cause of all personality. Then we begin to further realize that where our own life is personified, God is personified. So we regain the idea of a personal God, but without the limitations of a human God. The sense of a personal God can return to us and is in us. Prayer becomes a communion, not a petition. And the wave, just as the wave arises from the ocean of infinity and personifies itself through all people, hence it is personal to all who sense its inner presence. Now, I love the words of Ernest Holmes. I've studied him for many, many years, and he can be just a bit abstract. So let me see if I can perhaps bring this a little closer to earth for us. The Buddhist teaching of Indra's web, most of you may have heard of it. It's this idea that life is this web that goes on forever. And at the intersection of all the strands, there is a jewel sparkling in that infinite light. As far as you can see, there are jewels embedded in the web of life. And if you look closely at the jewel, what you will see in its many facets is the reflection of every other jewel on the net. And it's the idea that we are all connected, that there isn't anything we do or any way that we are that does not impact the entire web of life. That is a picture that I understand more readily. But when I look around my life and, sometimes just in my living room or in the city council chambers or on international news, life is hard. And what does it help me to know that each of us is a jewel reflecting all of life? Well, all of life sometimes sucks, honestly. So I'm going to bring it down one more level, and I'm going to use a favorite poet of mine, Mark Nepo. He has a poem called The Art of Netting, Netting, netting. This is how it works. I almost die. You are at my side. It's hard on you. And so your friend is at your side. Next month or year, it's you who falls into the crater. Then I'm there for you. And my old friend is there for me. This is how a net distributes the weight. This is how the net of hearts distributes the suffering. Even our dog climbing on my wife's lap when she cries is part of the net. Now that I can understand. So we are all connected one to another. We are all impacting each other all the time, whether we see it or not. And it is this idea of a personal presence. In other words, I am me, you are you. When we connect, it's a beautiful thing. But we also are connected to that shared power of life, the life within each of us that recognizes the suffering of another or the joy of another or the ways in which we discover we are more alike than different. It's in that connection that we find our support, that we find our power, that we stand on a firm foundation. I can remember being at a family holiday, and my great-grandmother was alive until I was probably 12 or 13. And I can see Granny sitting in her chair, surveying the room, this very small room filled with many loud Italian people, all related to each other, talking and laughing and eating and carrying on. And I remember distinctly the feeling that no one would be here had it not been for her. That everything came from this one source into this explosion of life. And if you carry that image into even yet a larger family, or even into a community, or even to cover the entire planet, you can see how we all come from a source, and yet we all appear individually in the world. We are shaped by where we come from, and yet we add our own self to it. And all of it is Spirit expressing through and as each of us. Now, it's hard sometimes to hear all the trauma and drama in the world and think, well, we're all the same, and, if that's in them, it's in me too, because, I'm not a mass murderer, and I'm not a cruel person, and I'm,
I don't think I cut people off on the freeway, although it probably happens once in a while. But when I think, for example, like how different am I from, say, the Aboriginal men in Australia? We don't look anything alike. Our daily life doesn't look anything alike. We're so different. How could we possibly be of the same substance? Well, I would venture that we both love children and take care of the elderly and seek a life of love and justice, that we hear the bird song and are moved by it, or by the sight of the stars or the sun setting. And in that sense, in that soul level underneath whatever's going on the surface, there is a resonance and a recognition that people are people, that life is life, that I am a part of it. I am an expression of it, just as you are. Just as we all are. Just as life is. I mean, think about it. If you pause for a second and close your eyes and just feel into your body for a moment, is there some place in your body where you can feel the blood moving, or the breath moving in and out, or this sense of energy that is the truth of you? And if you open your eyes and you look around the room, what you're seeing are people who have that same energy of life flowing through them. Now, we do have a habit as people of separating things into categories. My neighborhood, my church, my family, my candidate, my preferred illness. We talk about stuff all the time in categories. And part of what happens then is we say, well, this is worldly stuff and this is sacred stuff. And in science of mind, in metaphysical teaching, we know that it's all sacred. It's just kind of hard to see it when you're talking about categories of belief systems or people or politics or whatever it is. But truly, there is no sacred and profane. It's all a sacrament. In other words, it's all the life of God in action. And it's not that categories aren't helpful, because they really are. Like categories on your file folders. This is helpful, right? You can find the information you're looking for in the properly labeled file folder. Blood types. Blood types are really good categories. That's going to help you if you're ever hospitalized. It's a good thing to know what category you're in. But organization is one thing, judgment is something completely different. And using categories to judge each other is probably the worst use of our intelligence, because it creates a separation that oftentimes is hard to bridge. Because the truth is, no matter what category we think the other person is in, there's always something in common. The guy with the political sign in his lawn that doesn't agree with how you vote, you could still talk about gardening. You could still, enjoy the puppy that just moved in next door. There are still ways in which to relate, because we are complex beings full of all life, not one set of opinions or one labeled category. One of my good minister friends, I've known him since I first started with Science of Mind. He's a minister in Florida now, Ron Fox. And he wrote a blog recently that he posted on the minister's listserv, and he was talking about his vacation in New York City. And they thought that it was one of the best vacations they'd had the whole time they'd been married, partly because they met all these people from all over the world. He says, in 7 days, we spoke to people from 24 different countries. Cool, huh? He said, over and over again, my wife and I were aware of the fact that when people meet as individuals with no agendas, labels disappear. It didn't matter what part of the world someone was from, their culture, what form of government their country practiced, or their religion. All that mattered was that we were connecting and enjoying each other's company in the moment. Not even language barriers got in the way. One morning we had breakfast with a couple from Scotland, and we spoke about raising children. Another time we had a wide-ranging discussion with a couple from France. And my favorite was a discussion I had with a woman from the Dominican Republic about baseball. See, there's always something. And he said, why am I writing about my vacation? He said, because I never have been as conscious of these words that Holmes wrote as I was then. God in me is unified with God in all. This one is now drawing into my life all love and fellowship. I am one with all people, with all things, with all life. And as I listen in the inner silence, the voice of all humanity speaks to me and answers the love that I hold out to it. And I thought, wow, that's what we're here for. We are here to hold out the love that we are to all of humanity. And it's not just true with people. It's true with all expressions of life. Thich Nhat Hanh has a wonderful idea that he calls interbeing. Interbeing. He says, he calls it clouds in each paper. So he says, if you're a poet, you will see clearly that there is a cloud floating in this sheet of paper. Without a cloud, there would be no rain. Without rain, the trees cannot grow, and without trees, we don't make paper. The cloud is essential for the paper to exist, and if the cloud is not here, the sheet of paper cannot be here either. So we can say that the cloud and the paper are like we are being. This interbeing is sometimes called the integration of the universal and particular. Each of us is a particular being, and each particular being is also the entire phenomenal universe. This is what Ernest Holmes was saying, but the picture wasn't quite as clear the first time I read it. Each point along our journey has been integral in shaping who we are today. There's an exquisiteness and beauty to this divine order. Without even the smallest step we took or the tiniest choice we made on the path where we are, we wouldn't be where we are today. Today, we can see the beauty and we feel the grace. Everything is interrelated. Nothing stands alone. No one stands alone. Even the farmers don't just grow the food. It's really the sun and the rain or the irrigation that grows the food. The farmer does plow the field, plant the seed, harvest the crop. But he does it on equipment made by others. And it's carried to market by yet another group of people. This food that we eat, that we say we rely on the farmers for, is dependent upon every other step along the way. And so are each of us. I would not be who I am had I not gone to school where I did, or made the friends that I did, or lost the friends that I did. Right? You wouldn't be who you are without the families that came together and maybe broke apart and came together again. We live in this part of the country as opposed to some other part of the country. We are different because of that. And yet, we are the same. We're always the same. Our main quote today comes from another Mark Nepo poem, which of course I'm going to share with you because you need poetry in your life, whether you know it or not. This one is called Under the Temple. The temple hanging over the water is anchored on pillars that nameless workers placed in the mud long ago. So never forget that the mud and the hands of those workers are part of the temple too. What frames the sacred is just as sacred. The dirt that packs the plant is the beginning of beauty, and those who haul the piano on stage are the beginning of music. And those who are stuck, though they dream of soaring, they are the ancestors of our wings. Those who haul the piano on stage are the beginning of music. And I would say that we really don't know the impact we have on the world except through trust and faith. You know, the roadie that packs and unpacks the truck for the concert giver and schleps the piano up and down and back and loads the guitars and the amps and all that good stuff. You know that Jackson Browne song that y'all know the words to. Do they really think about the fact that without them there's no music that night in that venue? Do you realize that the smile you offer someone changes their day enough that they go home in a better mood and their family is better for it? Do we know the impact we have on people that we meet once or sit next to on a plane? Or as a friend of a friend that joins us for dinner and we never see them again? Do we know really how we are all interconnected? We don't know the particulars, but we can certainly trust the process, for it is the very nature of life. And it's this life that we are right now. And where there is life where these connections seem to be made full of obstacles, or it's clouded, or it doesn't seem loving at all, we're called to remember that it is the systems of thought, the way that we think, the habits that we form, the culture that we create that provides us with the pathway of life. So it is in our own thinking, it is in our own laws and justice, it is in our own perception and intention for the world that our culture is created, that our society expands, that love is spread throughout the world. So we're called to see rightly. We're called to remember that there is a web full of faceted jewels reflecting life in all directions. That within one wave is the spirit of the ocean. It cannot be anything else. And that the wave is not truly separate. And it's being aware of that that allows us to change the way in which we respond to the world. If I walk into a situation and two people are arguing, I have choices, right? I can join in on my favorite side. I can break it up and shoo everybody away. I can turn around and leave. I can do any number of things. What's important is where I'm coming from when I do it. If I break it up because the conversation is inappropriate for perhaps the children in the room, that comes from love. If I take sides, that may not be coming from love. So my job, my purpose is to be aware of this spiritual continuity that connects us all so that I might respond from a place of love and light and not be part of the storm on the surface of the ocean. Even though sometimes it's really fun to get in there and start swinging, but it's not always in our best interest, is it? We're to remember that there is a sacred nature to everything and to everyone, no matter how badly they're behaving. We're to hold out the love to humanity. Whether it's a smile you're giving away or a $20 bill or a bill that you're submitting to Congress. It's all love. It's all ways of impacting the world. Just you, being aware of the spiritual nature of life changes the world around you. You are all agents of change. We are all little powers of love. So wherever we live, whatever we believe, whatever color, no matter who we love, the infinite presence is in each of us as the ocean is in the wave. And I close with a quote from Ernest Holmes again. You are united with all. You are one with the eternal light itself. The presence of Spirit within you blesses everyone you meet, tends to heal everything you touch, and brings gladness into the life of everyone you contact. Therefore, you are a blessing to yourself, humanity, and the day in which you live. Namaste. So please join me in a moment of prayer. Breathing in again to that heart center. Finding that place within which is untouched by the world. That place where the silence lives, where the spiritual knower resides. I find that part of me which trusts and recognizes and celebrates the divine. For that is the truth of my heart. That is the very energy of love, and love is simply another name for God. And as I know this for myself, I know it for everyone, that within each of us is a center of knowing, a place of peace, a still, small voice, simply awaiting our attention. And it is from this place of peace that I call forth a life of peace. From this place of love, I call forth a life of love. For I know that beneath the surface of every personality, there is a heart center of love, of life, a soul's desire to create, to be seen, to be heard, to be recognized. And we are one in that space. And so I bless my life, I bless this life in its entirety, for I know that the wholeness of all that is the wholeness of my very being. And as I remove every obstacle from love that I might carry, I see only a brighter path before me. And as we together recognize the love in each other, barriers fade away, obstacles disappear, and that path is widened and brightened before all of us. And as we do this in this community, it happens again and again and again in ever widening circles, for there is no place where God is not. This energy of life that is love is everywhere present. And all that is unlike it must fall away as we each bring our own love to every circumstance. We are here by divine appointment. We are here to offer our love to humanity. We are here for a higher purpose. And in this I am grateful. Grateful for the blessings already seen and those yet to be. Grateful for this community that comes together to celebrate life. Grateful for everyone and everything I come into contact with that challenges my ability to stay in peace and love. For I know that all of life is for me, and that I am only called to be my best self. And in that best self, each of us, we are enough. It is good, for it is truly all God. And so it is. And I invite you to say our affirmation, which you'll find in your program. And if you will repeat each sentence after me so that our friends online can join in. Spirit is in me as the ocean is in the wave. Spirit. The wholeness of life is my truth, and all is well. And so it is. All right, well, what I know is that we are a mighty congregation. We have a beautiful center, getting prettier all the time. I said it last week, but I have to say it again this week. Did you see the sunflowers? Those aren't even ours. Those are the next door neighbors, but aren't they delightful? And isn't it good that we get to see them too? So I want to thank you all for all that you give to this community, that we might still be here on a Sunday, and who knows how we might show up in the future. We've got ideas and plans for new ways to get back together when we start socializing a little more, as COVID continues to disappear from our realms, or at least become more manageable. We are looking forward to end of summer and creating a few events for us to do together. And in the meantime, we are working to beautify the building, to help those who are less fortunate than we. We have our food collection box out in the foyer where we're still asking you to bring in non-perishable items. Foothill Family Shelter sent out an appeal this last week saying they really, 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 really need our help. So next time you hit the grocery store, pack a bag for someone else and bring it in, and we'll make sure that they get that. And if you are contributing financially today and you're in the room, the baskets are in the back. Those of you online can do so on our website or through our emails. And know with me that all of this together creates a center of love that can only expand and grow. And you are a part of that, and we are all grateful. So if you will, if you have a contribution, please take your contribution or your intention over your heart and say with me our prosperity affirmation. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I give, and all that I receive. I am prosperous now. Wonderful. And Janelle, it's all yours.
Thank you. Wow. Another multi-layered sermon or message. Do you call it sermon or message? Message. Sermon.
You know,
yes, it was.
Ideas.
I'm still chewing on the last one when I was here, and it was about, if you feel sad or you feel grief, that's not the only emotion that you have access to. I'm still chewing on that one.
Oh,
so
wonderful.
This one is going to do the same thing. A lot to chew on. Wow. I wasn't sure what song to do as the second song because I try to know ahead of time, like I get a feeling, and I had these two worrying songs. And when you started talking about categories, my son, who Elijah, Jeff used to be his piano teacher, and he's been talking to me. We've had 3 one-hour talks about categories in the last 2 weeks. He brings it up all the time. Why do we categorize people? You can't put anybody in a box. And he's talking about that all the time. And how that once you do that, it isolates the person and it judges them, no matter what the box is, even if we put ourselves in a box. He said, Mom, I could never describe you as just my mother and a musician and a this. It would take forever to describe you. It would take forever to describe anyone. And so it brought me back to these 15-minute songs. And my first 15-minute song, I decided, because I had a particular student in the songwriting group who just kept stopping. She would write and stop, and she wasn't finishing anything. And I thought, well, I'm going to do the 15-minute exercise because she was the first one. She was the inspiration for the exercise. And I took her pen, and I was going to write it with her pen that she had been struggling with. And the whole category thing is what stops us from just being love, because just expressing who we are in that moment, because we're just stuck there. And I could do a whole message myself right now, but I'm not going to. I'm sorry. I won't put you through it. But anyway, so the first song was about water. This is about a pen. So there you go. All right. This pen will not mend my broken parts, but it will soothe my weary soul, and it could be your work of art. This pen puts my feelings on the page so I can let them go. It doesn't care what I look like or my age. This pen doesn't have eyes to see. This pen, it never judges me. This pen doesn't know right or wrong. It just goes along with anything I say. It's better than a best friend in a way. This pen, it never breathes a word, keeps all my secrets. It's as if it never heard. This pen will never know its worth, and for that it kinda hurts, but that's the way it works. This pen doesn't have eyes to see. This pen never judges me. This pen doesn't know right or wrong. It just goes along with anything I pray. It's better than a best friend in a way. This pen, when I think about my life, what I want it to look like, this pen doesn't have eyes to see. This pen never judges me. This pen doesn't know right or wrong. It just goes along with anything I play. It just goes along with anything I say. It just goes along with anything I pray. This pen.
That's perfect. Thank you so much. We do a similar exercise in ministerial school. As you know, if you give a minister a microphone, we'll be happy to talk to you for a very long time. It is helpful, however, if we're somewhat organized in our thoughts, because it's a little bit easier for you to understand what the point is. And we had exercises like that in homiletics, writing talks, where we would be given a very, very short amount of time to come up with very profound, inspirational things to say. And it's quite liberating. It's quite liberating. So you've got me thinking about journaling and writing, and maybe so. All right, so the only other thing I want to remind you of this week is that Wednesday night gateway, we have, this week is a meditation night. It's a fifth Wednesday, so we take a little break. And I'm sorry, it's a first Wednesday because the first of the month is tomorrow. We take a little break in our speaking venue and instead make it a listening venue so that you have an opportunity to spend some time within in a guided meditation, in a little bit of a quiet spiritual space that maybe you don't always find at home in the middle of the week. So join us, come early for Nisa's small quiet meditation here in the foyer off the main, I'll say that again, in the practitioner room off the main foyer, and then join us in the chapel at 7 o'clock for a meditation evening, which is always a lovely restorative process. So we look forward to seeing you there. I think that's what we have. Anybody have anything else? Am I missing? I want to thank those of you that have stepped up to volunteer for our accounting team, for helping in the bookstore. It makes it much more fun when all of our friends participate. And if there's something that you see that you might like to be a part of, please let me know, let one of our board members know. We'd love to have you help out. Maybe Mickey would like a little company out there saying hello to folks when they come in, and you could be that person. You know, it's pretty easy. Most of you know how to smile, right? Yeah, see, that's all you need. Smile and be happy to see everybody. If you're really grumpy, don't apply for that particular position. Wait till we work on you a little bit. All right, that's all I have. So let's stand up, shall we? Let's make a circle, and let's talk about the love and the sanctuary.
Take a look at the person next to you. Say, God loves you and I love you too. Now feel the love in the sanctuary. Lift your voice and repeat after